Welcome to a special Transmissions Alt Mode where we talk about all the media related to the... On this episode, we sit down with Alexander Bornstein, the composer on the new Netflix series Transformers War For Cybertron. Hear what goes into scoring a show and about some of the specific themes in the show. Just a note, if you haven't watched Siege yet, there will be a few small spoilers in the interview. Welcome to another special Transmissions Alt Mode. I'm your host, Jeremy, and with me is Charles.
Hello, everyone.
And we are very happy to have this week Alex Bornstein, who is the composer on Transformers War For Cybertron Siege. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so you're actually the composer on the entire trilogy, right? Not just Siege?
Correct, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And you have previously worked on shows like Agent Carter, The Boys, Lost in Space, the new Twilight Zone series, and a documentary about Apollo 8 First to the Moon. So lots of credits there. And you said you're actually the full composer on First to the Moon.
Yeah, correct.
Cool. So were you a fan of Transformers before getting onto the series?
I was, yeah. So it was very cool to kind of be brought into the project, when it all came together. My first memories of Transformers was watching G1 when the Sci-Fi Channel started broadcasting, like around 1992, 93. They did an animation block every weekday morning, and that was kind of how I got sucked into the mythology of it all, and that was like my go-to show for a long time. So then, and I like kind of would, I'd watch other shows as they came out over the years. And then, it was obviously everyone has their opinions about the films, but, I thought the first 2007 movie was great just because it was like, I didn't know how much I missed hearing Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime,
right?
And so like seeing him show up again, in $100 and something million Hollywood film, like was a really cool experience for me.
Yeah.
So there's these little signposts throughout my life where the Transformers has kind of popped in and out.
Cool. I think I remember when that Sci-Fi G1 block happened. I remember in high school in homeroom before school started, we'd have our TVs in the classroom tuned to that.
Oh, nice.
So like I was in like 9th, 10th grade watching Transformers in homeroom. Well, so what goes into kind of creating a score for a series just in general? Because it seems like as much it's kind of as important as the script itself in my eyes, like just to set the tone. And particularly this series, I felt like it was very futuristic, alien sounding. I was just kind of wondering what kind of goes into crafting that.
It's a lot of discussions, and in this case, they're discussions I had with FJ very early on. It's I was brought onto the project. The first meeting I had was in February of 2019, which was basically like the first time that I met with FJ and I met with Matt Murray, the supervising producer, and we talked, and it was like, yeah, like I think this is going to be a great fit for all of us. And so then I kind of went away for a while and just kind of thought about random ideas and like themes and things like that. And FJ had sent me some, I really like this score, I like that score. And, the benefit of having that window of time, which you don't usually get, is, all these ideas just kind of got to simmer in my brain for a while, and I got to try a bunch of different things out. And so it's kind of a mix of trial and error, and then also sort of listening to like just your initial instincts of, oh, I could try this, or I could try that, or, we wanted to do a lot of synthesizers, and, how do you balance not being completely electronic? Because it's not, the score isn't like an Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor score where it's purely electronic. Right. Even though he's done some orchestral stuff, there is, in our score, there is a lot of orchestra and, solo instruments in addition to the synthesizers. So it's just like a lot of discussions and kind of bouncing ideas off, both in discussion and then also writing music, and then kind of letting, the people you're working with react to it. And then like you kind of just keep doing that until, you run out of time.
Right. Well, when we talked with FJ DeSanto, he told us that his musical background helped him kind of talk to you in like the same language, or like, being aware of the musical concepts. How was that collaboration from your side?
It was really great. It's rare. I shouldn't say it's rare, but I have worked with people before who do have musical backgrounds, and it can sometimes get in the way. Because it's like two chefs talking about
Right.
recipes. It's too. But what was great is that I think it allowed FJ and I to have a very easy creative shorthand, and he knew exactly how to pull from that background and cut to the chase, basically.
Right.
And so it worked out really well for us to basically try things, and I got to go, I tried so many cool things, and it allowed us to very quickly figure out the tone of the show and what we wanted to do creatively, and it was, him having that background plus his, just the depth of knowledge that he has of Transformers,
Mhm.
it really helped us sort of, get to the heart of what we wanted the score to be.
Cool. So I guess in a lot of cases, you're also having to kind of explain the whys of some of the musical choices. Whereas FJ, like hearing it, he would kind of understand why you put that particular piece there.
Yeah, and it would be easy when, when he would have feedback, he could say, "Oh, I hear this, this high violin line, just can you take that down an octave?" Which is like which is great because sometimes, you can run into people who maybe get too abstract about what they want you to do.
Right.
It's and they try to use music terminology to codify what they're talking about, and you're just, you're like, "No, that's now I'm getting confused." It's
Right.
just like this whole cycle. But he was really great by just being like, "Oh no, like bring that down an octave," or I think I hear, can you take that melody line and put it in a French horn? And like it was really a nice synergy of each of us kind of knowing enough about what the other was doing to really clearly communicate.
That's awesome. So with the instruments, were they all like electronic, like a synthesized horn, or did you have like actual instruments in some places?
In some places, yes. These days most composers, kind of operate from a basis of sample instruments.
Right.
For that's how how I do most of my orchestral writing is with different sample libraries of orchestral instruments, and then I supplement it with percussion or synthesizer. And so I would write basically the whole episode using those samples, using my analog synths and my plugins and stuff, and then we would record a small group of people here in town, just some friends of mine, and we would record some like some cello, we would record some violin, and then that would kind of supplement the sound of the show. And what we tried to do was rather than layer on only a single layer or two of a cello, for instance, to try and like mask the fact that the orchestra wasn't completely live, I let the soloists kind of lean into the the idiomatic side of their instruments, so that the solo instruments actually stand out apart from the orchestra. And I hopefully the net effect is that you get something that's a little bit more personable and identifiable, rather than oh, it just kind of sounds like trailer music, which isn't, it doesn't, trailer music by design is not meant to fit the project that it's
Right.
for. So at least this way now with those solo instruments, hopefully there's a little bit more of an identity for the music.
But yeah, I knew I heard some cello in there 'cause I played for like 9 years up like through high school,
Oh, cool.
and yeah, it's like I always try to pick it out. Um,
Yeah. No, I worked with a great cellist on this project named Rowan, and Ro is great at just adding such a layer of depth to the music, especially in some of the stuff that goes on in episode 5 and 6.
mhm. So, what were some of the influences when you were developing the score? Like, what other kind of composers or movies or other scores, like, kind of were you guys referencing and trying to be like, I want like a little bit of this, a little bit of that?
Yeah, FJ and I kind of talked about, at the beginning, I think in terms of direct sonic influences, it's probably, Tron Legacy, Oblivion, Blade Runner.
Mhm.
those kinds of scores. I think, in terms of dramatic context, FJ and I tend to talk in Star Warsese.
Right.
We're basically, we kind of do a lot of narrative framing by and Star Trek as well, but kind of using those as influences and how to shape some of the dramatics. But I think, really it's more of like Tron Legacy, Oblivion scores like that. But making sure that I always look at guys like Jerry Goldsmith and Basil Poldoris in terms of having some very clear thematic chunks as well. Like there's a very clear Autobot theme, there's a very clear Decepticon theme, and they kind of are at odds with each other through the whole, trilogy.
Cool. So I guess let's kind of talk about those themes. And
Mm-hmm.
I read in some other interviews you've given, you have like a few character themes as well, but and even FJ told us this, the main characters are just kind of Autobots, Decepticons, and Cybertron itself. So kind of like what can you talk about those themes and like how they kind of represent their particular faction or group?
For sure. Yeah. It's the goal for me was, obviously we started kind of, in the void. There was no music, there were no themes. And, I'm always asking myself these questions, what do you do? Where do you take it? And so I was looking at obviously scores that I really admire that kind of have a lot of thematic content, like, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Star Trek, and, all these scores. And what I didn't want to have happen is create a theme for literally every character, because the show, especially Siege, it's fast and it's very intensely paced, and I didn't want things to get lost in the shuffle. So the goal was to do, Autobot theme, Decepticon theme, Cybertron theme, and then rearrange and develop those accordingly based on what's going on, in the show, and change them as needed to reflect certain characters. Like the episode 3 opens up with this very specific development of the theme for Ratchet. When he finds Impactor.
Right.
And there's a specific way that you present the theme in that context. There's a specific way you present the, Autobot theme when Optimus Prime is being heroic and doing, like when he saves Wheeljack and Bumblebee in the pilot, or I guess episode 1, it's not a pilot, but,
right.
And so that, I follow kind of more of what Jerry Goldsmith did with his Star Trek scores, where he had, the main Star Trek theme that everybody knows, but every film had a specific new theme that he would then use in various presentations to kind of develop the story, especially in like First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. So that was kind of the goal there. But what I wanted to make sure that both of those scenes were connected. So there's an A section of the Autobot theme and a B section. The B section is actually the Decepticon theme, just with different chords.
Cool.
So there's still this narrative thread that connects the two themes, because ultimately, at the end of the day, they are all Cybertronians. They just have completely opposite philosophies on what's best for the planet. And so the idea then is you can then take those themes and then play them kind of against each other, and musically they can almost sort of fight like this. When it's exciting, I can actually list like specific examples now of when this happens. When Jetfire saves, I think it's Prowl, when he gets sucked in the
Sea of Rust.
Yeah, in the vortex. You actually, what I did is in the low strings, the Cellian bass play the Decepticon theme, while the French horns are playing the Autobot theme in counterpoint. And so basically what happens is then as soon as Jetfire grabs Prowl, the theme completely flips back over to the Autobot theme, because that's essentially he's now proven that he's truly defecting. He's not playing games with them, because it's at the end of 3, you really don't know. And so like that, and it's fun to do that rather than have a Jetfire theme that's all of his own, even though Jetfire is completely badass in that first season.
But that wouldn't tell a story like.
Exactly. And hopefully, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, the viewer is kind of being carried along on that musical sort of roadmap. And it's something I'm hoping that, whenever the soundtrack comes out, that a lot of this will be easier to hear as well, because it's, the sound design is so, it's so awesome, but I think it's the music maybe can sometimes get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I think I was talking with a friend kind of about that, and he seemed to not notice as much of the soundtrack when he was watching it, and I think because of our discussion with FJ, I was specifically looking for the soundtrack, and like
Yeah.
particularly in my second viewing, I was trying to pick out things a little bit more carefully.
Yeah, well, when the as soon as the series premieres, I have some stuff that I'll do on like social media and my website where I'll do like actual music theory breakdowns of the
Oh,
themes,
awesome!
so you can actually see melodically like what's going on, and then hopefully, again, whenever the soundtrack is out, you can it'll be easier to connect those dots. And the Autobot theme is actually the end titles. So we when everything was kind of getting approved, we decided to basically use about a minute and a half of the original Autobot theme that I turned in last summer as the end titles for Siege. But then every subsequent season will have a new title cue and a new end title cue.
Will those like I imagine Earthrise is going to have some of the same themes from Siege, but then kind of it's gonna have its own identity as well.
Yeah, so I probably can't say anything about Earthrise,
Yeah,
but
just
100%,
in
yeah, like
a vague.
every season will carry the same identities over of what, because it's not going to be a different score every season,
Right.
but we just kind of turn the knob just a little bit so that there's, I think a distinct identity for each chapter, and there are some new themes in Earthrise for different things.
Well, I mean, I would imagine you're going to have, stuff isn't settled on Cybertron, so
No, no, quite the
why have a lot
opposite.
of new stuff, for those characters. So,
Yeah, no, and it does help too. Like it's especially like Alita is a great example of a character who I did write a theme for Alita, because by the end of Siege, again spoiler, she's now kind of the de facto leader of the Autobots on Cybertron, and so it's I think and also too. Her theme is basically what sends the Autobots off of Cybertron, because she has and it's one of the moments I'm really happy with how it turned out dramatically, was that basically you hear the Alita theme maybe half a dozen times through the course of Siege, and then when she sort of says goodbye to Prime and the arc starts taking off, basically you get this completely like full-blooded version of the theme, just like full bore, big strings and everything, because it really is an arrival point for their dynamic. And so like it's you do sometimes need to come up with a specific theme for those kinds of the characters that get those character arcs. You want to make sure there's something for them.
awesome. Yeah. Sometimes I wish that we could have the option of watching the series with just the music.
Well, I don't think I would get into any trouble. But when I do those like social media things, basically I want to have it so you'll see a picture of the sheet music so you can see what the theme is, and then you swipe to the next picture and it'll just be a scene from the show with just the music.
Yeah. I think I've seen like Star Wars, and people have done that with Star Wars and kind of, you know, put the score on top of, you know, so you're just watching the stuff with the music. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
From kind of a music nerd perspective, it's kind of interesting to see just kind of how the emotions can carry over with no vocals.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
When
go ahead.
when you're when you were developing all the themes, was there any? I know probably the classic G1 soundtracks are caught in licensing hell or IP hell, but was there any thought or hint to try and sneak in some of those old references to those old themes into the new score?
No comment on the first half of the question. And so, but I think going into this, when we saw how the animation was turning out and we saw what the story was doing, I think we consciously decided to just sort of start fresh rather than, kind of emulate like the Robert Walsh, Johnny Douglas stuff or the Vince DiCola scores. I think the tone of those is so it's almost it. I think it would be a different show if we went after that style, because like the G1 scores are very much that 80s style of scoring. It's kind of like a small chamber orchestra with maybe like a rhythm section, like guitar and drum kit and stuff. And it's, I think I wouldn't rule anything out for the future chapters, but I think for Siege, it's such a gritty and grim story. I think we kind of just consciously, maybe without even realizing it, now that I think back, just didn't kind of step in the direction of those scores. But it was definitely a discussion in the early days.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you look
Okay.
at some of the older series, Beast Wars had its own, you know, musical identity. Beast Machines coming back to Cybertron was, I guess more similar to what you guys did with the electronics and synth and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, most of the series haven't gone back to that G1 well too much.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say most scoring in general. We don't, the people that I know and other composers, we don't typically get asked to kind of do that style of scoring anymore. But it's all a big pendulum. It wouldn't surprise me if it swings back someday.
Were you involved
Uh,
in the actual like sound effects at all, deciding those?
No, that wasn't my
Because we did
department.
get the G1 transforming sound. I think that's a good kind of.
They had that in. So I would write the music to the previs, which is basically the episode just with a much less detailed render of the animations because they spend time doing all the textures.
Yeah.
And even in those temp sound mixes, before anything was in besides the voice acting, they had that sound in there.
Yeah.
So they were
Nice.
they were very conscious of it. So Charles, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just had another question about how the process is for when you're writing the score. Like, you came up with the bigger themes kind of independently from any individual episodes, and then you go through the episode and figure out how you match the music to the episode. I'm not very musically inclined, so I'm curious how that process works.
Yeah, no, it was, basically I was shown some decks from Hasbro, some presentations, this is what Siege is, and this is what Cybertron's going to look like. And this is and I did read the scripts for the whole trilogy. So I was able to kind of get this very big landscape of the show, not of the music. And, from there, it was kind of up to me just to kind of come up with the stuff based on the discussions I was having with FJ. And that was probably the most intimidating part of the project, because I'm sitting there, all right, so we can't do G1 stuff. I can't do Vince DiCola stuff. Like, what the hell am I going to do for Optimus Prime? Like, like who the hell am I to write a theme for this guy? And so it just took a lot of trial and error. I would sit at a piano and kind of like play stuff. And I was really, I was probably, hopefully I was hard enough on myself and people will agree when they hear it. But, it was basically like, can I hum this theme? Like if I put this theme on French horns with big strings, like, is this something that's going to stick to the character? And when I officially was brought on the project, I was given this guy and this guy. And so when I started, I put both of them on each of my speakers and the box art behind them. And basically it was just like, all right, what are we going to do? And I'm not saying they helped, but eventually it did kind of start to flow. Like there was where is it? Oh yeah. Like this picture of Starscream on the Earthrise box, like for whatever reason, like that just really helped me find this aggressive, nasty sound for the Decepticons. That just, it's when you hear it, the full theme track, the first 20 seconds of the Decepticon track is just this kind of like rising electric, just terrifying sound. And to me, it just really was able to encapsulate that picture of Starscream just with his fist up there and just like, so angry. And then the same thing with Prime and the Autobots, just kind of looking at that and just kind of letting, just kind of trying to follow some creative instincts and seeing, does it feel authentic to that picture of Prime and to the, to what I think the Autobots are about. So it's a weird mix of like trial and error, and then like this sort of blackout that happens where I'm just like, oh, I guess I did it. I guess I figured it out, and just, and it's just, it's a weird, sometimes it's a very weird process like that where you can't really, the more you explain it, sometimes you almost have a harder time trying to get your hands wrapped around it.
Right. What was there any point where you and I guess FJ and Matt and whoever was working on it kind of came across something and was just like, that's it. Just, like kind of a eureka moment about a particular piece.
Yeah, there is. I came up with this sound. I have a mini Moog synth, and there's this like arpeggiated bass thing that I came up with for the Autobots. That as soon as I did a V1 of the Autobot theme, and FJ heard it, he's like, I like it. It's good. It's close. And he gave me some pointers. And when I did the version 2, I found this theme or this sound on the synth, and then I recreated it in a software plugin so I could recall it, more easily on other cues. And as soon as he heard that, he was just like that, this is approved with, gold star, put it in the show. And you can hear it. That sounds in the end titles.
Nice.
And so I try to use it whenever the Autobots are kind of like, the few moments where they're in control during Siege. I try to use it as much as possible. And the same with the Decepticons. There's a sort of these rising shepherd tones that are just like very unsettling. That really clicked with us early on.
Cool. And you said that you think that this will be released as a soundtrack.
I hope so. I know FJ, Matt, and myself were all kind of doing what we can to make sure that there'll be something.
Cool. Yeah, that I think, I don't know, as just kind of someone that likes scores, like, Tron Legacy is just something I go back to all the time. And I think this would be like right alongside it as, music that if I just need to sit down and concentrate, have like no vocals or anything, something like this would just, make its place in that playlist I have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I fingers crossed. And I think honestly too, these days, like, pinging Netflix and pinging Hasbro and E1 and Rooster Teeth and all these places, like, asking for, if they hear that fans want it, I think that speaks volumes these days. So hopefully, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Cool. Yeah, it probably doesn't hurt that Hasbro now owns a record company.
Yeah.
So so I think that's everything I had. Charles, you have anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else, but I am really looking forward to getting to watch the show again and really listening for the score. Cause yeah, I mean, the first time you're just kind of blown away by the action. And now I really want to rewatch it and really listen for all those themes you put in there.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things. It's, if no one notices the score, it's actually like the most flattering thing for a composer sometimes. But it is, I do kind of, I do want to make sure that I don't want people to think that I didn't forget to write themes for the show. But it's, it's difficult because it's, a show like this is like the sound design is so important. And, Jamie Hart, the re-recording mixer, and the whole sound design team did such an amazing job. It's like, it's not like I'm trying to steal the spotlight from anyone. It's it's cool when like it all just kind of clicks the way that it does. So if people are watching it and the music's not distracting them and they walk away from the show digging the whole thing, then, I feel like it's mission accomplished. But I agree. Like, I hope that, the soundtrack will come out and people can sort of, bond with these themes and think that they, are authentic to the characters.
Yeah, I mean, we'll say what you will about the live action movies. Steve Jablonsky knocked it out of the park in every one. So
I agree. It's everyone. Like I said, everyone has their opinions, but I mean, that the Arrival to Earth cue is just good stuff, and it works great in the movie.
Yeah, I have that CD. I played it in my car all the time. Back when my car had a CD player.
Yeah. Apparently, the CD's worth a little money now. I heard.
Oh, is it?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
I,
because they didn't produce a lot of it. Like I remember I had to kind of like hunt for it when it first came out. It was like right, I guess it was right when people were sort of like
Transitioning.
transitioning. I didn't. I still buy CDs. I'm the weird guy that still likes to collect music like that. But it's I remember I was on Amazon a little while ago and I saw someone was selling a copy of it for more, certainly more than we probably paid for it.
oh, nice. Okay. Well, I'm not going to sell it, but it's nice to know that that something I bought might go up in value a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it caught me off guard for sure.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
big box of CDs my wife has been trying to get me to do something with, and I'm sure it's in there.
Uh,
All right. Well, I guess we can wrap up with our rapid fire questions that we like to, run each guest through the first time they're on our show.
cool.
So, um, Autobot or Decepticon?
Autobot,
Who is your favorite Autobot?
Wheeljack.
Okay, awesome. He was great in the show.
Yeah, I was awesome.
Um, Live action movies, one, two, three, four, five, or Bumblebee.
One.
And this is the comics. I don't know if you're familiar with the Transformers comics. I guess I should ask you: are you familiar with them before I ask this? So kind of a pointless.
The, the the comics are the one thing I can say I probably did not have time to really dive deep into, but I may know the answer. I don't want
Okay,
to.
let's just
We'll see if I embarrass myself.
it's a preference of series. There was a series called More Than Meets the Eye, series called Robots in Disguise, Till All Are One, or there's a new rebooted Transformers.
I know of these series. I think is More Than Meets the Eye. Was that the first Marvel series?
Well, no, these were all starting in 2012. But if you want to say the first Marvel series from the 80s, that's acceptable.
I did. That's that. If I was going to start anywhere, I would just start with those.
Okay. Um, and third party toys, yes or no? These are like unofficial, non Hasbro.
Oh, yeah, I've fallen down the rabbit hole on some message boards about this, just sort of like learning about it. Hmm, I guess not.
All right. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Chicken or steak?
Steak.
Pepsi or Coke?
Coke.
Burger King or McDonald's? Or any other burger franchise?
I guess McDonald's.
Okay. History or science?
Hmm. History.
Okay. Xbox, PlayStation, or Switch?
Switch.
Okay. PC or Mac?
Nice.
Uh, oh man, I'm like this is like a daily struggle for me. I would say I was Mac, but I think I'm going PC now.
Cool. iPhone or Android?
Um, iPhone.
Okay. And what iPhone app can you not live without?
Oh boy. Picking up my phone. I'm just seeing what's up front. Oh man, I'm gonna be super lame and say either Gmail or the weather app because my wife asks me every morning what's the weather going to be for the day.
Mine too. And I'm like, you have a phone. Okay. Marvel or DC?
DC.
Okay. Awesome. Who's your favorite DC character?
Um, I guess Batman.
Okay. Stallone or Schwarzenegger?
Oh boy. Schwarzenegger.
Okay. And Pixar or DreamWorks?
Pixar.
Do you have a guilty pleasure movie that you always watch whenever like you run across it on TV or just you just can't you stop and
Yeah, it's probably Star Trek 6.
okay. So this is the important question: Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh man. Uh,
It seems like you're fairly you're a fan of both.
yeah, I'm like pulled both ways. But if it, if it came down to it, you know what? I'll die on this hill. Star Trek.
Okay. Simpsons, Family Guy, or Rick and Morty?
Simpsons.
Walking Dead or Game of Thrones?
They both have such bad seasons in them. I guess Game of Thrones.
Okay. And this one's not really as applicable right now, but NFL, MLB, NHL, UFC, or NBA?
Oh, yeah, that is tough. I'm not even really a big sports guy. I guess I usually do end up getting pulled into the NFL in one way or another.
Okay. Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, or Volkswagen Beetle?
I mean, I gotta say Beetle. I'm working on a Transformers show.
Right. I mean, all of those are cars that were in Transformers.
Yeah, but I feel like it's
Yeah.
like the Beetle.
You
You
got
kind of
Bumblebee.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. And finally, blonde, brunette, or redhead?
I guess red.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. That was our rapid fire.
Nice.
So, we'll have like links to some of your social media, but do you have anywhere like you want to point people to if they want to like, um, I guess see those theory things that you post after the show's out?
Yeah, so you can find me Bornstein Music on Twitter, Instagram. AlexanderBornstein.com is my website. The breakdowns of the themes will be coming out on my website, and then I'll also do similar versions of them at the same time on Instagram.
Okay.
And if you go to my Twitter, I'll cross post them so you can get to my Instagram through there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. This
Yeah.
was a lot of fun.
All right.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. All right. And thanks everyone for watching this, and hope you also watched our FJ DeSanto interview and our non-spoiler review of Siege. And then last week we did episodes 1 through 3 spoiler reviews, and this week we'll have 4 through 6. So we're Siege crazy right now. So watch all of our stuff, and see you next time. Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions Podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.